Oh no, I didn't do it right. Oh, I did it right. Is it working? Is it working? Oh, it is working. Okay, that's good to know. Let's change this over to live chat, and then we're going to get started as soon as I know. Oh, everything's working perfectly. Not sure he's going to show up today. See, what happens is sometimes the more interactive that we get, the deeper this unfolds. But what I want to do, whilst we're at it, is introduce some things, okay? See, because I have a very unconventional approach and a very unconventional theory in case hypothesis. It's really a case hypothesis because I've done no experimenting to make it a case theory, but you know how people like to talk on Reddit. So I have a case hypothesis about Domingo Sanchez. But let's what we're going to do, because I think what we did yesterday was very effective, where we started with Ripen Court on Quester files and just slowly worked our way through the article. And I try to kind of keep my thoughts as focused as I can and as thorough as I can. So, let's get started. Files on the East Area Rapist. Happy Halloween, everybody. So, I mean, I told you guys that last night, so it's like fine, but anyway, let's move on. Offense 187. Actually, it's not. It's a murder with special circumstances. See, because EAR was lying in wait. So this isn't a 187. He heard that in a rap song and thought it was cool. Though it might have been charged as that. I'm not sure. Anyway, the point is, technically this is like a 190.1 penal code. But let's just... I mean, you know, he's trying to look sophisticated. He's trying to look elite. I like Quester. We're buddies and everything. But I think under offense, he should write double murder. It's a little more... it's a little more accurate than just writing 187. That's like I heard a Sublime song where they said that. Okay, criticisms aside, let's jump into it. The address is 449 Toltec Way. For those of you who are not who didn't know, Quester lists it as address Toltec Way. The address is 449 Toltec Way. City is Goleta, California. Date is July 27th, 1981. Incident, he calls it a dig and retreat again. Let's not get into that, because if there's a dig and retreat happening, it's kind of irrelevant. See, what actually happened here is D'Angelo was familiar with this area in the first place, so he's not really necessarily like in dig and retreat isn't really required to pull off this offense, and it's not some kind of advantageous element of this crime, I don't think. But he's already familiar with Toltec Way. He's already familiar with this entire little area here in Santa Barbara. For the time, Quester writes a bunch of dots, which is confusing, but okay. That's because we don't actually know what time this occurred. Now, if there's a gunfire report that's associated with this write-up, we'll talk about it. And the suspect, of course, is Joe D'Angelo or the Irons. Let's see what you guys are seeing. Make sure everything's okay. It was a breezy summer night in Goleta. The murder of Offerman Manning was a year and a half old. There was little reason to worry. Well, I guess what he should have wrote was there seemed to be little reason to worry, but let's not be like ridiculously nitpicky, okay? I'll try not to. Besides, it had seemed a burglary gone bad. There wasn't much to burglarize at Cheri Domingo's home. It had belonged to a relative who had recently passed away, and she was house sitting. She had been laid off recently, and this fit her schedule. It's never easy to be laid off at 35, but she had prospects. She was contemplating going into a consultant business on her own. She had worked at Trim, a computer furniture manufacturer, and had enough contacts to make a stab at what was soon to become the biggest business of the 1980s, computer technology and all the ephemera that came with it. I don't know exactly what that means, but, you know. This wouldn't be for long anyway. The house was for sale, and it wouldn't take long to find a buyer in a nice town around Santa Barbara. There was another reason not to feel any worry. Her old light of love had come by to visit. Greg Sanchez was a big guy, handsome and only 28. They had broken off their relationship months before, but had remained good friends. Okay, let's address something here. Greg Sanchez was a big guy. Look, I know that the balance of advantage was completely tipped away from Greg Sanchez here, but not so if we're going to entertain what I think is a ridiculous possibility that Greg Sanchez and Iran's got into a pirouetting fist fight. The house was also a nice home in a cul-de-sac, Toltec Way, and people in cul-de-sacs are usually well aware of what goes on outside in that little asphalt lagoon they live on. It should be a safe place. But behind the house was another house, and this house was on a street that had a park on the other side, and then a heavily wooded creek beyond. It was the same San Jose Creek near which the Queen Anne house was located, and off which the condos on Avenida Pequena were built. In fact, Toltec Way, though divided by a cat corridor from the condos, was just down the road. Las Perlas connected both areas. The cat corridor was not detractive. It no longer had huge towering power pylons. It had specially adapted tall power poles similar to, though much larger than, regular wood power poles. Much of the area to one side of Las Perlas, the street that connected these communities, was devoted to a Christmas tree farm. This same Christmas tree farm, or other Christmas tree farms, show up throughout the East Area Rapist case. But fortunately, in this circumstance, we're not attempting to decide whether or not this was Iran's like we were at Ripon Court, because we know from the DNA that it is in fact Iran's. Moving on. The cat corridor was not detractive. I read that. But neither Cheri nor Greg knew that Avenida Pequena had been the deep dig. Okay, so let's not get into that again. It could have been the deep dig. This could be an illusion. It could be something that Quester has come up with to represent something. I mean, there's no real guarantee that Iran's was utilizing the dig and retreat method that Quester has hypothesized, but I am a believer of the dig and retreat. The only thing was that when I went to Irvine, I found the invert of a dig and retreat. When I went to Irvine, and I mentioned this before with people, that Irvine was a retreat and dig, but it depends on where you think the offender came from. This is why it's such a rabbit hole to get into dig and retreat that I think we should just avoid it. Okay. EAR had scouted the area in his usual way. He had parked on the other side of the creek in an entirely different part of Goleta and found a footpath across at the edge of Berkeley. He could scout out the communities for quite some time, ride down Las Perlas to the condos, or at night walk across the cat corridor through the Christmas tree farm situated there and go to the condos. But now Berkeley and his deep dig would be used for the last time. As always with his deep dig and retreat, he would strike closest to his point of entry this time. The condos were far away compared, but Toltec Way was just a street away up Merida and from the Berkeley footpath. EAR had stalked here before, even before the attack on Queen Anne Lane, which is the Offerman Manning murders. October 79, over a year and... Actually, no, it's not, is it? It's the Goleta 1, which was a botched attack, so that's my mistake there. Offerman Manning was December 30th, I believe, 79. On September 24th, 1979, a young man was walking his dog, which was off its leash, and wandered into a yard off Berkeley. The dog returned badly cut up. No one was home when he knocked on the door. So let's look at this. Alright. Yeah, weird. So let's keep moving on. No one was home when he knocked on the door. He then bothered a neighbor and called somebody to come help him. A man came and picked him and his dog up. It required 70 stitches. I'm going to move this down. I know that, having a person on the screen is kind of advantageous to you when you're running a show, so let's just do that, even though I don't care. That was sitting on a guitar pick. Sorry, everybody. He returned to the homeowner who had helped him and left a solitary rose in gratitude for allowing him to call. That October, EAR would attack at Queen Anne Lane. That December 30th, he would attack closer to Berkeley at Avenida Pequena, and that is when Offerman and Manning are murdered. Now, on the night of July 26, a local resident on Merida saw a white male leaning against a tree at 9:45 p.m. Later, at 10 p.m., a man and his wife were walking. They were followed by a blonde man, young, shoulder-length hair, about 5 foot 10 inches tall. Okay. Guys, look at this. Shoulder-length hair, blonde. What do we see at Ripon Court? Same exact situation. What do we see in numerous witness reports of the East Area rapist? Shoulder-length, blonde hair. We know D'Angelo never had shoulder-length blonde hair, so it must be a wig, and it must be a wig because this crime is linked by DNA. However, it could be argued that the white male who was seen on Merida isn't the offender. I call BS on this claim. Let's see if we can pull up a map without my processor going insane. Let's try to kind of build a picture of this. Murder Inc. GSK map is live as a Halloween treat. Oh, nice. Thank you. I'll check that out. Because we're gonna stick to Goleta. I'm trying not to get too sidetracked here, but then I will put that up. Murder Inc. I don't see a reason why not to just. Maybe you have logic behind this. Pull up Goleta. Oh yeah, you're right. Okay, let's do that next. Because I don't want to get sidetracked by the cluster of attacks and other crimes that we're gonna inevitably see on the Murder Inc. map. What I do want to do is pull up the address without anything on it. Just because I want to get a picture of where Merida Lane is. It's right next to the address. It's like one street over, as far as I know. I haven't been there. Toltec Way, Goleta, California. Here we go. And then I'm going to put Google Earth on the screen for you guys so you can also see it too. Because we're getting a little bit of slow activity. And let's do that. And then we're going to let's do this. You guys are seeing a bunch of NASA-style stuff on your screen. Extremely visually unappealing. We'll do another window capture for Google Earth. And nope, not that window. Google Earth. Thanks. I'm going to try to limit that affected by any logos, anything going on. Okay? If I can find them. Toltec and Merida. Okay, so I've already looked at this, I guess. Apparently, it was a while ago. So, you guys, I'm going to put a pin on... Well, I guess there is already a pin there. It's a big red pin. Oops. Big fat red pin there on Greg Sanchez's house, or Cheri Domingo's house, I should say. But you can see here the murder address, 449 Toltec Way. Merida Drive is the street on the left side of your screen that runs top to bottom, essentially. And, of course, there's a canal/walking trail there. I've mentioned this before. Hurons did not gain access to 449 Toltec Way via Toltec Way. He gained access to 440 Toltec Way by sneaking along the side yard of the house on Merida Drive that you can see here, which is basically... oh, shit. Well, okay. You guys understand it. It's the house directly to the left of 449 Toltec Way on your screen. Hurons did not walk on Toltec Way. He gained access to the backyard of 449 Toltec Way via the house on Merida Drive. How do I know this? I don't have proof of this. This is just an opinion. But it's an opinion that's based on, first of all, sound logic. Second of all, a decent understanding of D'Angelo's modus operandi. The house he's gains access via this house. So this person with shoulder-length blonde hair is seen on Merida Drive, prowling. The dog, I don't know what's up with that. We still, to this day, do not know what was up with the dog in Goleta. So let's just avoid that issue entirely. Because what ends up happening is we start getting bogged down in the woofy stuff. They call him Woofy, the dog. And it's a rabbit hole, and it's really just noise. Because whether or not Woofy was involved... Now, Woofy could have been involved. What do I think Woofy was? I think Woofy was a dog that D'Angelo had acclimated to his presence by feeding it. He was known to do this, we believe. Because dogs acted very strangely around Irons basically from the beginning, and possibly all the way going back into the Cordova Meadows burglar era, if he's the Cordova Meadows burglar, which, you know, I don't think that all the Cordova burglaries are D'Angelo, but I think a good portion of them are D'Angelo, or are the I should say it better. I don't think all the Cordova burglaries are the Cordova Meadows burglar. But I think a good majority of them are the Cordova Meadows burglar, and I think that the Cordova Meadows burglar is D'Angelo. To assign every single burglary, every single home invasion, every single residential burglary to D'Angelo is probably jumping the gun. But there's telltale signs of D'Angelo when D'Angelo is around. And I think that the Cordova Meadows burglar, in some of those offenses, it's obvious that it's D'Angelo. Okay. So, pay attention to this. Shoulder-length blonde hair. At 11 p.m., a mother was jogging with her daughter. They saw a white male standing on the sidewalk in front of the house on Merida that was right behind Cheri's house. See what's going on here? I think he's acclimated a neighborhood dog to his presence by feeding it. And in doing so, probably the owner of this dog was not home. Why? Not sure. They could have been on a summer vacation, something like that. Notice that both the Offerman Manning murder and arguably the Domingo Sanchez murder occur on holiday seasons. In the case of Offerman Manning, it's obvious. December 30th, that's the Christmas holiday. 5 days after Christmas. And the Domingo Sanchez murder is in the smack dab middle of the summer. So whoever owned this dog could have just been on vacation. Remember, too, that there was at least some evidence or some reason to believe that dog was involved at the Offerman Manning crime scene, too. Walking a dog while prowling the neighborhood gives Irons an excuse to be prowling. So he's walking around with a wig and a dog. That's what we're beginning to understand here. They describe the young man as in his 20s, white, blonde, and the dog a German Shepherd. Notice this. He's spotted twice here. In both cases, he's seen with blonde hair. One time he has a dog, one time he doesn't. What is the difference of time between them? The time he's seen leaning against a tree is 9:45. The time, and he's seen again at 10 p.m. No dog. He's seen at 11 with a dog. So sometime in between the hours of 10 and 11 p.m., Irons acquires a dog. Where did the dog come from? The dog probably came from a nearby house. Now, the issue, of course, becomes, well, does anyone not recognize this dog? No one ever came forward and said, hey, that was my dog. I owned a German Shepherd and I lived on Merida? Or did he bring the dog from somewhere else? We're never going to know, and that's why the woofy rabbit hole is just such a nightmare. But I think this is Irons, and I think Irons had a dog with him. Where did he get the dog? Probably from someone's house. Did he bring the dog from Sacramento? Probably not. Moving on. Safe in the house, neither Cheri nor Greg knew of this. Why should it be a big deal anyway? A late summer night, people are out and about, but at 3 a.m. all was quiet. The sky was indigo. The streets were awash in little pools under the bloodless light of the halogen lamps. Around 3:25 a.m., a neighbor, Virginia Wood, heard a gunshot. Okay, there was a scream. Hey, Murder Inc. Murder Inc., check it out. Are you guys getting video? This is a nightmare. Oh my god, how much are we losing here? Come on, dude. I don't know how much you guys just missed. Oh, fuck. It was under the bloodless light of the heard a gun. Murder Inc. Check it out. Are you guys getting video? Okay, as long as you have audio. It was under the bloodless light. Audio. This internet is trash, by the way. Heard a gun. It's Murder Inc. Check. Let's mute that. That's brutal. Sorry, everybody. It's the perils of live streaming here. I'm going to watch those bit rates really carefully. I think I'm going to read this from the screen you guys are seeing. Murder Inc. Check it out. Around 3:25 a.m., a neighbor, Virginia Wood, heard a gunshot. There was a scream. Dogs barked for about 45 minutes. It was quiet again. Okay, here's what we know. The gunshot goes off at about 3:30 in the morning. The witching hour. Cheri Domingo is alive when the gun is fired. Obviously, right? So this is all going to help with the timeline building. Or the case hypothesis understanding of this crime. I'm watching my bitrate, so I'm reading now from smaller text. Hopefully that doesn't fuck everything up. Because the house was for sale, a real estate agent came by around 12 noon to show it. Okay, oh my god, dude, this is so fucked up. I'm dropping 20% of my frame rate right now. This is brutal. Let me see what's going on. Oh, it's probably because Google Earth is open. Let's try closing that. How's everything right now, guys? Is it bad? It's probably really shitty. I know. It's rough. It's a rough experience here. I'm going to just try to close everything using network speed. That seemed to help. So, note to self, never open Google Earth during a stream again. Okay, thanks. All right. And I'll just intermittently tab back and forth to the bit rates. Here's what we know now. This is why it's good to read the Quester files 100,000 times, guys. Because you're going to forget stuff. This is such a complicated case, and there's so much going on that you're going to forget a lot of the details, and you got to go back through the file, and that's all there is to it. So Cheri Domingo is alive when the gunshot's fired. The gunshot's fired at 3:30 in the morning. Dogs barked for 45 minutes. What does this tell us? It tells us that Virginia Wood is awake for at least 45 minutes after the gunshot is fired. And what did I say yesterday about D'Angelo not wanting to draw attention to the house for the next several hours? Imprints in the carpet. We're going to talk later about that. Moving on. Because the house was for sale, a real estate agent came by around 12 noon to show it. The door was locked. She let herself in. She walked around and came to the front bedroom. There, nude, partially in the closet, slumped over and covered with some loose clothes, was a man. It was clear he was dead. A body was under the covers on the bed. There was blood spattered about. She called the listing agent. I don't know what to say, but there is a body of a man face down in the bedroom, she reportedly said. Okay. It doesn't appear, at this time, that Sanchez was covered with a bedspread. Is this still fucking acting up on me? Okay. It doesn't appear that Sanchez was covered with a blanket. Sanchez was covered by clothes loose on the floor of the closet. They don't tell us enough. They never tell us enough. But what was my hypothesis yesterday? That Sanchez was shot in the face, stumbled into the closet, grabbed onto the closet pole for stability, and it came down because of his weight and landed on top of him. And within an instant, Irons was on top of him and hit him with a lawn plugger. We're going to keep going on. The police arrived to find the scene. The body was, of course, Greg Sanchez. It took days for the coroner to finally determine he had been shot once in the cheek, non-fatal, and then beaten 24 times on the head. Pulling the sheets down revealed Cheri Domingo. Nude, her hands were behind her back. It was clear her ankles and wrists had been bound in a hog-style manner. Curiously, the ligatures had been removed. She, too, had been bludgeoned to death. One account says it was gruesome and far more than was necessary to kill. Larry Crompton, in Sudden Terror, says she was hit only once by the same weapon that had killed Sanchez. Okay, so what is the first account? The first account, we don't have a source from Quester. It just says one account says. Crompton, in Sudden Terror, says she was hit once. Okay. Sanchez had been shot, apparently while kneeling or at a downward angle from the assailant. He must have gotten up, been hit again, stumbled back. No. We don't know that. Don't say that, Quester, that we don't know that. Hold on. Hold the phone, Quester. The gunshot is non-fatal. If you hit somebody in the head with a lawn plugger, it's going to do some damage, guys. This is a very, very heavy let's pull up a picture of a lawn plugger, just to give you an understanding of what the murder weapon here was at this crime scene. Because I think that this is not mentioned enough anywhere. It took me ages to actually find out what was used as the murder weapon at this crime scene. This is a lawn plugger. Open image in new tab. Lawn plugger. This is the murder weapon in Goleta. Well, this is not the exact murder weapon, but it's a lawn plugger. Another lawn plugger. Do you see the length of this item? Because it's designed to be held like a pogo stick at basically waist level and then stepped on those platform thing there. So you have a lot of leverage in this item. You can swing it incredibly hard. It isn't the pipe wrench. Now, a pipe wrench is a very heavy thing. It isn't a pipe wrench. It isn't this screwdriver. It's a long object. The leverage that you can get with something like this is unbelievable. And this is metal object. Okay? Sanchez did not get up after being hit by that. He might have moved a little bit. He might have let out agonal breathing, which potentially startled D'Angelo and led to the barrage of 23 more hits that were done. But we're going to get into that as we get to the case hypothesis. Let's just keep going from here. Had been shot at a downward angle. What have I said about how Sanchez was shot? Sanchez was almost certainly shot attempting to roll out of bed or sit up and then roll out of bed. Irons is standing above him like this with the firearm. As soon as Sanchez goes to move, boom, he discharges the weapon into his face. It would be good to know if there were powder burns in this gunshot, but let's keep moving on. For those of you who don't know, powder burns are something that happens from a close-range gunshot where unignited secondary explosives from the cartridge, such as smokeless powder in a pistol, is ejected or fired from the barrel along with the slug, and it's unignited, so it's just hot powder, and that will hit you when you're hit with a gunshot at close range. But I mean, inside of a bedroom like this, it's almost certain that there's going to be powder burns. So what we don't know, I don't think this is a point-blank gunshot, and it's not a contact gunshot wound in the sense that the firearm was in contact with Greg Sanchez, but it was close range, obviously, because it's a bedroom. He had then been beaten maniacally until he fell and slumped into the closet. No, Quester. Stop, Quester. Nope. There are autopsy drawings available from this crime. The bludgeoning is on the back of Sanchez's head. Sanchez is lying face down when the onslaught of 23 lawn plugger bludgeons hits him. Okay? Quester makes a number of mistakes here. This is one of the actually least well understood Irons crimes that there is. I find Goleta, well, you can call it Goleta 3 or you can call it Goleta 2, because it's really the second murders that Irons orchestrates in Goleta, but it's his third attack in Goleta that we know of, officially. The first Goleta one was a botched crime, where we got into the car chase with Stan Loss, whatever his name is. Here's the thing. This crime is not well understood, and I think that it's because of failure to envision a coherent timeline by otherwise incompetent or uninspired investigators and researchers. Something happened here in Domingo's residence. What happened? Whatever happened in Domingo's residence does make sense. There is a linear timeline going on here, and just because you can't see it doesn't mean it isn't there. This is what's happened in Goleta 3, Goleta 2, whichever you want to define it by. Whatever has happened in the Domingo Sanchez murders is that somebody came along, saw a weird situation, and filled in the gaps with a bunch of really, really bad conjecture and really bad detective work. And this bad detective work was repeated so many times that people began to become blind to the obvious reality that there is a linear timeline of events occurring in Goleta here. It makes sense. Something in this house makes perfect sense. That's how reality is. The moment that you start clouding our understanding of reality with a bunch of weird shit that doesn't make any sense, that's how we know you're on the wrong track. Because reality makes sense. Reality always makes sense. Just because you can't see the sense in it doesn't mean it isn't there. So, Quester makes a lot of mistakes here. The killer then threw clothes on him or threw them on him before beating him to death in order to reduce mess to himself. Maybe he did that. But he actually, two things happen here where Quester fails. He contradicts himself, and he makes a what I would like to call a decisive assumption, where there's two options presented, and neither of them need to be reality, but they're presented as it's either this or that. It's what's it called? A false dichotomy, I believe is the correct thing for it. And I just made up my own word. Decisive assumption or something I called it. I don't know. Point is, look, did Eron's throw the clothes onto Sanchez? Greg Sanchez wasn't beaten maniacally and then fell. Greg Sanchez fell and then was beaten maniacally. There's a difference. Look at the autopsy drawings. The blows from the lawn plugger are in the back of Sanchez's head. He's laying face down when this happens. The gunshot wound and probably one single blow from the lawn plugger is enough to incapacitate Sanchez to the point where he's not. There's no fight happening here. I can't scream this loudly enough. I don't know what the fuck Paul Holes is thinking. Paul Holes is off of his rocker, guys. So this is a false dichotomy here. That the killer threw clothes on him or threw them on him before beating him. There's a third option that I think is a lot more likely. Sanchez grabbed onto the closet pole. He was shot in the face, which then he stumbles into the closet and he grabs the closet pole for stability. The closet pole collapses and the clothes land on him as he's falling, and then he's hit. In fact, for Eron's, it was the perfect coincidence, because we all know that he likes to cover his bludgeoning victims after the Smith murders to reduce the mess. Well, Sanchez had done that for him by falling into the closet. Look, guys. Sanchez is found lying face down. The evidence is already here. I don't know what to say, but there is a body of a man face down in the bedroom, she reportedly said. So he's not being attacked from the front. He's being hit while he's laying face down. Different situation. It was a cross between the Manning-Offerman murder and those bedroom murders in Ventura, Irvine, and Dana Point. Santa Barbara sheriffs were now suspicious it was the same guy. They labeled him the Night Stalker. Even when, in 1997, DNA tests definitely linked all the crimes as done by one perp, there was no link with Goleta. It remained only suspicion. There was no DNA evidence from the Queen Anne attack, of course, and Offerman and Manning had been murdered too quickly for EAR to commit rape, hence no DNA. Supposedly that was true here too, but in 2011 tests were done, apparently on DNA samples, that indicated EAR was definitely to blame here as well. There was little surprise, but now there was legal proof. Thus, Cheri Domingo sadly had also been raped. Actually, see, this is what I'm saying, guys. Domingo Sanchez is the least understood. Oh, I agree with you on Goleta 3, and not only did he more than likely leave with a wound or two, I'm thinking he could have possibly left a couple teeth behind, part of his EAR, and ended up with a handful. No, I don't think so. No, I'm serious. What part are you saying is sarcasm? No, I don't think there was a fight. I don't think there was any fight between Sanchez and EAR. I think EAR had the drop on him and attacked him. There was no melee. This whole concept of a melee was invented by Paul Holes. This didn't happen. It makes too little sense. No. It doesn't make any sense. I mean, if I had the crime scene photos, maybe I would draw a different conclusion. I'm sure Paul Holes has seen the crime scene photos. I haven't. But no. He didn't fight EAR. EAR jumped him, first shot him in the face, and then jumped him. There's no fight. Sanchez was shot before he was even fully out of bed. So what was he doing? Meleeing with Irons while he was shot in the face? That doesn't happen. Dude, if you get shot by a revolver in the cheek and it blows your jaw open like that, you're not getting in a fight with anyone. You're not only... I mean, he's lucky he wasn't knocked unconscious. He might have been knocked unconscious. You know? Let's continue on. Quester... And it's not just Quester's fault. It's that the narrative of Goleta 2 / Goleta 3, Domingo Sanchez, has been muddied to the point where that's a catch and release quote. Oh. Oh, Jesus. Okay. I understand what you're saying. I thought you were asking me if I was doing mocking sarcasm. I'm not. I'm telling you guys a very straight... But yeah, I know you understand. Okay. I get what you mean. Yeah, catch and release is fucking insane. He might very well be Eurons. Let me tell you why. Okay, I don't want to get sidetracked too much on Pro Boards users here, but you know why I think his name was catch and release? Do you remember that D'Angelo was arrested in the 1990s for a DUI? Or it was either it was like something weird where he was in a jail cell. Sacramento had D'Angelo in a jail cell in the 1990s and released him because they didn't take his DNA. So they didn't know he was EAR. That's what catch and release means, I think. Yeah, it could be that. But I think the catch and release is a reference to the fact that Sacramento had him in a jail cell in the 1990s. That's what I've heard anyway. That could be wrong information. Murder Inc. would know. You know, Murder Inc. Look, if you know about that, then just confirm for me. Or if you don't know about that, look into that and let me know if that's accurate. But as far as I know, D'Angelo was arrested in the 1990s by the Sacramento law enforcement authorities, and he was released because they didn't check his DNA. That's your catch and release. Okay, let's continue. So, actually, was Cheri Domingo raped? I can't say because the DNA that was used to link this crime to the original Night Stalker was semen from the corner of a bedspread. It wasn't from a rape kit, as far as I know. Maybe he did sexually assault Cheri Domingo. See, here's what happens. Look, all this nonsense. Also, Pay and Save, Catch and Release, 1979. Huh. Oh, you're right. Yeah, that too. Yeah. Yeah, I think he was referencing those. That's true. It was on a warrant for threatening a gas station attendant. Okay, yeah. Sorry for the DUI claim. It was a gas station attendant threat warrant. But you get the picture. He was released by the Pay and Save store clerks, then fired from his job as a police officer, and then he was also released for threatening a gas station attendant. So twice he was catch and released. Here's the thing. Look at what Quester does here. Quester assumes that because there was a DNA sample collected from this crime, that it had to have been from a rape. I'm going to give you a darker possibility. That there may have been no rape, and in fact, all that D'Angelo did was ejaculate in the crime scene. So that can be from masturbation or whatever. Let's keep going. The sequence of events is thus quite complex and convoluted. No, it's not. You just don't understand it. I'm being very critical of Quester here, and that's okay. I still like Quester. He's my buddy. I've talked to him. I wrote a song for him. Everything, right? But just be careful before. See, because people are drawing conclusions about this crime, and they're operating with a half understanding of things. They don't, like, look at this. When did Greg Sanchez get loose? He didn't. He wasn't bound. Sanchez was never bound. Okay, look at this. This is where you guys are going to see all the anomalies in this. And the first time I read this, I was like, wait, yeah, this doesn't make any sense. I couldn't understand it. The anomalies in this crime scene are what is going to reinforce my hypothesis of what the fuck happened in that room that night. When did Sanchez get loose? With Offerman, since there were wrist but no ankle ligatures on him, he seems to have made a play for EAR before he could even finish binding them. EAR's MO was to make the woman tie the man, then he would tie the woman and then tie the man's ankles. He would then take the woman to another room and rape her. By the looks of the bed in the spare bedroom in Ventura, he did the same there. In each case, the men must have been left alone, bound but apparently without any dishes on their back to alert EAR they had gotten loose. None of the men had gags, though they might have been removed. It is interesting to note, however, that the ligatures were not removed from the Smiths, but there were still no gags. But there was no evidence that Sanchez had been bound at all. See? Check it out. This is where my hypothesis begins to gather its steam, guys. Yet Cheri Domingo was elaborately trussed up. What on earth was the sequence of events here? This is such a it's so much information to try to put everything together in live time with you guys, but we're doing it. So look, no evidence that Sanchez was bound at all. So what do we think is happening so far? I guess this is when it would be nice for me to have a whiteboard up for you. I have a whiteboard. It's just in the other room, and I don't want to leave things unattended, because that's bad for ratings. Okay, look. How do we even sequence this? It's not that we can't sequence this because it doesn't make sense. It's that we can't sequence it because what do we start with? Let's say assault commence. What I mean by assault commence is flashlight happens. And he says, don't scream or I'll kill you. That's how things start. So flashlight. Right? Then Sanchez immediately makes a play for the weapon or for the offender. Sanchez attempts to stand, let's call it. Okay? I mean, you guys can't read that, so it's assault commands flashlight. Sanchez attempts to stand. 3. EAR shoots him in the face. All right. Sanchez stumbles into the closet. Bringing down clothing pole. EAR hits him once with lawn plugger. Once is hypothetical. We don't know this for sure, but let's call it for the purposes of this hypothesis. EAR hits him one time, head, lawn plugger. Remember, during all of this, Domingo is frozen in fear. She's not doing anything because Sanchez is a huge guy. He tried to stand up and he got shot in the face. So she's not going to do anything. She's frozen in position, not doing any. Now, Virginia Wood tells us that there was a scream after the gunfire. That might have been reflexive. EAR hits him one time with lawn plugger. EAR now binds Domingo. Okay. EAR now binds Domingo. Remember the elaborately trussed up where it's hog tie style? This is because he's got adrenaline coursing through him at the time that he binds Domingo, which tells us that Domingo wasn't bound until after the assault went haywire. That's hypothetical. I don't have any proof of that, but that's what I suspect is going on from this hog tie, that EAR is now fucking lit on adrenaline. And so he's doing a whole elaborate truss-up hog tie style. And it's also a power play. He's also showing her, not only can you not do anything or else you get shot in the face, but I'm going to really take my time binding you up. So you know you have no hope of getting out of this, right? EAR now binds Domingo. Sanchez reanimates or stirs or breathes. That can include agonal breathing, which is, death, the death rattle, or like that, but more fucked up. Sanchez reanimates, stirs, or death rattles. Because head trauma, okay? This alerts EAR. EAR returns to Sanchez, hits him 23 more times. He does the 23 times assault, the blitzkrieg, the barrage of bludgeoning attack, hits, impacts, not because he is worried that he almost lost in a fight, but for practicality's sake, because Sanchez has just shown him that he can not only survive getting shot in the face, but now being hit with a lawn plugger. So Sanchez is like pretty much a tank. He's Iron Man. So EAR, as a matter of practicality, hits him 23 more times. Completely obliterates his head. Therefore, he's not coming back at all. There's 0% chance, right? By golly. Okay. Everything that happens after this makes perfect sense however you slice it, pretty much. Because now we have a coherent timeline of the murder of Greg Sanchez. We need a coherent timeline of the murder of Greg Sanchez in order to crack the mystery of what happened in the bedroom in Goleta. We have that now. Now, is this guaranteed to be what happened? No, but it shows us that the answer is simple. The answer is always simple, guys. It doesn't, it's not some fucking... Like, the fact that Quester isn't able to make sense of this confuses me. Because it makes perfect sense. You just need to find it. That's why they invented scissors. Right? You just have to find what the fuck happened. That is probably what happened. No magic needed. No complex, convoluted sequence of incomprehensible events. All you need is a coherent hypothesis, and this is what you have. Assault commences, flashlights, Sanchez attempts to stand. EAR shoots him in the face. Sanchez stumbles into the closet, bringing down closet pole. EAR hits him 1 time in the head with the lawn plugger. EAR now binds Domingo. Sanchez reanimates, stirs, or death rattles. EAR returns to Sanchez, hits him 23 more times. Can someone ask Paul Holes where the melee is here? There's no melee. Melee is a stupid theory. Didn't happen. It just didn't happen. There would be other wounds consistent with that melee. Here's a couple of ideas for you. How about getting shot 3 or 4 more times? Why would EAR fistfight someone if he has a gun in his hand? There's no other discharges. So Paul Holes is trying to tell us that Greg Sanchez and EAR got into a fistfight and EAR didn't shoot him with every other round in the cylinder of that firearm? Didn't happen. Didn't happen. This makes way more sense. And what does this tell me? That Paul Holes is a subpar investigator. Simple as that. Simple as that. Murder Inc. calls him dirty. I call him inept. Maybe he's dirty. I don't know. But what I do know is he's not as brilliant as I once believed he was. Because this makes 1,000 times more sense than any fucking story about Sanchez and EAR getting into a fight. And I think even seeing it in writing like this... Oh, Murder Inc. is retracting stuff. Anyway. Oh, about the... what do you think's catch and release? Murder Inc., what do you think about my little timeline here? This sequence, like, let me hear it from your assessment. Read those 8 points on the board there. Makes sense, doesn't it? Makes a hell of a lot more sense than whatever the fuck Paul Holes was trying to feed us. Oh, he got into a fist fight and EAR didn't shoot him? Why would EAR be in a fist fight? He has a lawn plugger and a gun. There's no fist fight. There never was a fist fight. It's a dumb theory. It doesn't make sense. Okay. Moving on. So, look. Maybe there was a sexual assault in Goleta. Maybe there wasn't. There doesn't need to be, but there's no reason to believe there wasn't. Because with Sanchez out of the way, EAR is free to rape as much as he wants. Right? And Quester is actually going to give us a clue towards that. And he's going to mix it in with a bunch of other crap. Sort of. Look at this. Oh, man. Okay, look, here's where I'm going to completely diverge with Quester entirely. Because he's going to completely disagree with my hypothesis. And he's wrong, I think. Evidence reveals, in summary of these events written by profiler Leslie D'Ambrosia of the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, she called attention to a sequence of events she believed must have taken place. Let's see what D'Ambrosia of FTLE thinks. Evidence reveals that the male victims were likely eliminated prior to the sexual assault and murder of the female victims. This is consistent with my 8-point hypothesis, isn't it? Let's ignore Harrington, because this is irrelevant, and I think that what happens here is Quester is so worried about trying to make sense of Goleta using a completely separate crime scene that it clouds his judgment. Whatever happened to Keith and Patrice Harrington is irrelevant as to what happened in Goleta, because what happened in Goleta is what happened in Goleta. What happened in Goleta has nothing to do with Laguna Niguel. Laguna Niguel was its own crime, Goleta was its own crime. Because this happened in the Harrington case, it is likely that the offender struck and killed the male victims first in all the cases. Irrelevant. I don't need to know that. It doesn't matter. Again, like I said, whatever happened with the Harringtons in Laguna Niguel is what happened with the Harringtons in Laguna Niguel. Here's what we know. Sanchez and Domingo did not go according to plan. Just simply didn't. So, the Harringtons were a very, very nominal crime for Earons. Everything went exactly as he wanted it to go. The Harringtons were both compliant. There was no resistance. There was no gunfire. They were bludgeoned to death. Bludgeoned to death. Okay. The problem with this assessment is that D'Ambrosia didn't have any of the Goleta information. No, that's not the problem. Clearly, the Domingo Sanchez murders changed that. No, not clearly. EAR did not shoot Sanchez and then remain around to truss up and rape Cheri Domingo. How do you know? Well, Quester says a gunshot means he had to move quickly. No, it doesn't. Look, you can, especially on July 31st, scream happens after gunshot, so not gagged. Was victim gagged when bound? If so, binding happens after gunshot. Correct. Binding happens after gunshot. Like I said, the gunshot is the first thing that happens at Sanchez Domingo. It's the very first thing that happens, aside from the flashlight. Here's what happened. EAR broke into the room, shined a flashlight at Sanchez and Domingo, and as soon as that happened, or, within seconds of that happening, Sanchez attempts to exit the bed, and he's shot in the face. Yes, binding happens after gunshot. Thank you, Murder Inc. You're right. Now, regardless of the scream, all this other stuff, what we know is that the gunshot starts this event, this sequence of events. The bludgeoning comes after the gunshot because the gunshot was non-fatal. The gunshot was not post-mortem. The gunshot was pre-mortem, which means that the bludgeoning comes after the gunshot, which means that the gunshot happened first. The gunshot happened almost immediately after the initiation of this assault. So, look, he says he had to move quickly. I disagree, because if it's July 30th, is that the right day? If it's July 30th, 31st, you're only, 25 days out from 4th of July. Most people in a neighborhood will assume that that's a firecracker, and as long as you don't fire that gun more than once, which is what he did. He fired the gun one time. Nobody has any fucking clue where that came from. That's why he then went to the bludgeoning, because the bludgeoning is silent and can't be seen from the cul-de-sac. Can't be detected from the cul-de-sac. He beat Sanchez and then must have beaten Domingo. This means he had already raped her, yet there is no evidence that Sanchez was ever bound. Because you're wrong, Quester. And it's the only way that it works. In Quester's version of reality, none of this makes any sense, and I can understand why he thinks it's convoluted and complex and can't understand it. Quester's assessment of this crime is so glaringly wrong that the only reason I'm reading for you today is because I'm showing the problems in his system here. It doesn't work. None of it works in Quester's narrative. None of it works in anyone's fucking narrative except mine. I don't think anyone's ever given you this 8-point hypothesis right here. I think I'm the first person to figure this out. Because everybody, and I'm not saying that from a point of pride, but I'm saying that because everybody was so bogged down in the myths of this murder. They had been fed so much crap that they didn't know what happened. Because people like Quester, and I'm not saying it's Quester's fault. Quester was going off of, he has his part to play. We're all accountable for our theories, and if I'm wrong about this 8-point hypothesis, then I'll take accountability for being an idiot too. That's what we do in true crime. If we come up with an idea and it's wrong, we don't cling to it at the expense of reality and double down. We go, okay, I'm wrong about this. Let's rebuild the timeline. But here, this timeline is the only one I've ever seen that makes sense. And I crafted this with my own mind. Well, God gave me the ideas. But anyway. If this is true, it is hard to imagine how EAR could have left him alone somewhere while trussing or raping Domingo elsewhere, because he would never do that. That's absurd. Okay, if that's true, Murder Inc., then why didn't they solve the case? I don't want to get into that, Tony Reed, because that could be just, I don't know, man. I don't even want to talk about that. That's a whole, it's like a challenge, and then then prove to me, give me the receipts, blah, blah, all that shit. I don't want to know, because if that's true, then why didn't they identify him? I don't want to get bogged down on that. Let's keep talking Domingo. Let's not talk Visalia Ransacker. Let's not talk Exeter Cops. Let's just stay right here in Goleta. One thing seems certain. Sanchez challenged EAR. He went berserk, shot him in the cheek, probably while struggling with the gun. Retarded. No, never happened. And then beat him 24 times over the head. Guys, okay, look. He shot at a downward angle. Quester isn't... So, let's play fantasy land here for a second in Quester land. And I know I'm making fun of my friend a little bit. It's fine. Guys, if Sanchez and the East Area Rapist are struggling over the gunshot would have to happen from a downward angle, or an upward angle. Because what do we know about D'Angelo? He was shorter than Greg Sanchez. And you can argue, well, he was holding it all the way over here. No. Stop. That's ridiculous. What happened is Sanchez sat up, rolled to the side, took a gunshot wound to the face. Right here in the cheek. Now, depending on what side of the bed he was on, I don't know if he was on the left or right, whatever. Because I need to know what cheek he was shot in. But he sits up. He begins to roll out of bed. He takes a gunshot wound to the face. Stumbling forward, he deposits a pool of blood at the foot of the bed. And in that stumble forward, leading him to the closet, he grabs the closet pole and falls down with the clothing landing on top of him. That makes sense. None of this makes any fucking sense in Questerland. 24 times! How someone could collect themselves after this rage to hog tie and rape a woman is hard to imagine. Not when they're a psychopathic serial killer. It makes all the sense in the world. What was he supposed to do? Run around screaming like he did with McGowan? That was a ruse. He didn't do that because he was scared. He did that because he was getting ready to shoot McGowan. Which we all know. Hard to imagine? Not really. And I think that's why you fail to understand this crime scene properly. Because you don't have the capacity to properly interpret the crime scene dynamics. There can also be a different interpretation to the Harrington chain of events. Let's not get into that, because it's a different crime. Not even sure why we're talking about it here. From the looks of... This is so stupid. Okay. In the space allowed under the name for those students who wish to leave a sentiment, he had written, "Even lucky men die." The question is, when did he die? Almost immediately. Okay. Cheri Domingo had been trussed in a fashion called hogtied, meaning that not only were her wrists and ankles bound, the legs had been drawn up behind her and tied to the wrists. It takes a while to hogtie someone. How could EAR risk doing this with Sanchez unbound? How could he risk doing this after firing a gunshot and then going berserk with some unidentified bludgeon? Well, we know what the bludgeon was. It was a lawn plugger. So I'm not sure why. I guess that he just didn't know at that time. This is an old article, too, so... He couldn't risk doing this with Sanchez unbound. So Sanchez had to be dead. It's the only way, and Leslie D'Ambrosia told you that. Now, she told you from a different crime scene. Let's try not to argue with the Florida Department of Law Enforcement when they have a very solid understanding of what the fuck they're talking about. Because... Can someone send this video to Leslie D'Ambrosia and see what she thinks of my theory? Because it's the only thing that ever fucking works in this story. As in other cases, the weapon was gone. There was no sign of forced entry. However, EAR had gotten in by removing the screen on a small window in the bathroom. This allowed him to reach in and unbolt the door that leads to the patio. Nothing appears to have been stolen. The house was not ransacked. Murder Inc., remember what I said about lying in silence after the gunfire to make sure no one knows where the gunshot came from? The house was not ransacked. What does that tell me? It tells me that there was no lingering period before all hell broke loose at this crime scene. All hell broke loose immediately. And we are seeing... Okay, guys, I've been to the Withune crime scene in Irvine, and what I saw at the Withune crime scene was a master of serial killing doing his thing. This guy, by the time he gets to Goleta and Irvine, he knows exactly what he's doing, and he's the special forces of doing it. Because there's no fight. He had no hesitation. None at all. He shows some signs of hesitation in the Offerman Manning shooting, but not really. In Offerman Manning, he reacted quickly and effectively. The EAR was known to do this. At Domingo Sanchez, he reacted very quickly and very effectively. And so people say, well, what was so bad? What was so fucked off in Goleta that had him off his game? It didn't have him off his game. The victims tried to do something, and EAR was in the zone. As in other cases, the weapon was gone. There was no... Okay, we saw that. Who was the young blonde man with the white German Shepherd? Many have promoted him as being EAR on the prowl because of what appeared to be three-doe German... No, that's not why we say that. I promote him as being EAR on the prowl because he's on Merida Avenue or Merida Drive hours before the murder. And who the fuck was he? The descriptions that we have from the witnesses are similar to the composite sketch and the identikit that we have from the Ripon court. I'm not saying, oh, he looks like the sketch. I'm not doing that. But what I am saying is that the descriptions are consistent between Ripon court and the Goleta prowler. What the fuck is Quester talking about? Guys, this article's a mess. This is a mess. Were they coincidence? This same young man appears to be the one who had knocked on a door on Berkeley months before because someone had stabbed his nosy dog when it intruded into a house's yard where the family was temporarily gone. Is it? It sounds like EAR did the stabbing and was not the young man with the dog. What the fuck are you talking about? Maybe. Recall the Windsor court incident in which the family saw someone in their home when they pulled up. When they entered, they found their poodle beaten to death. I think what Windsor court is in Goleta. Why was a poodle beaten to death? Maybe it wouldn't stop barking, or maybe it wouldn't let EAR hook it up to a leash. So he killed it. Maybe it bit him. Who knows? But dogs are a consistent theme in Goleta, and now we have a prowler with long blonde hair who's seen on Merida Drive 4 hours before the gunshot goes off on Toltec Way. It's got to be EAR. That was EAR's method. Berkeley fit his dig and retreat MO. This is irrelevant. Did I say... Okay, I think I accidentally timeline mixed things up and I put Withune after Goleta. I didn't mean to do that, guys. That was an accident. Why the fuck was JJD even in Goleta? Was told he worked security. We don't know. At least I don't know. Who knows why he was there, but he was there. We have a seaman at the crime scene, so he was there. So here's what's going on. Quester is making an assumption that Cheri Domingo couldn't have been raped after Sanchez was killed because EAR couldn't rape her after he fired a gun in the residence. Not true. He's also making the assumption that the semen evidence at Goleta is from a rape. I heard that the semen evidence in Goleta is from the corner of a bedspread. So maybe there was a rape, maybe there wasn't, but we do know that EAR ejaculated at the crime scene. There is every real possibility that that was a posthumous ejaculation, meaning both victims were dead at the time that he ejaculated at that crime scene. I know that's fucked up, but it's just as reasonable as anything else. Unless we have seminal fluid from inside the body of Cheri Domingo, which I've never seen a claim for, then we don't necessarily have a rape here. Do we? Probably. Yeah, he probably raped Cheri Domingo. Why not? I mean, normally that's what he would do. But maybe not. Maybe he just wanked it. Don't know. Let's see what else is going on here. There's nothing so far in the Quester sequence of events, and I know that they're fucked up, but I think Quester does here's what I think happens. I think Quester relays us a good objective account of the crime, but when it comes to hypothetical subjective interpretation of the crime scene, he proceeds to screw up massively. You know? Let's take this off the screen. So this is what happened in Goleta. Only took us an hour and 9 minutes to say it. Whether or not there's a sexual assault here is mostly irrelevant. Anything that happens after this point here happens with compliant victims. or a compliant victim. Everything that happens here in the first 8 points happens with one non-compliant victim and one compliant victim. After the line, here, compliant victim. So, anything could have happened here. And we'll never know, because there are no survivors, and D'Angelo isn't going to tell us. But based on a pretty rough, objective outline of the crime scene itself, we can build this sequence of events, and this sequence of events makes more sense than any sequence of events I've ever seen talked about in Goleta. Nobody has ever done this with Goleta, as far as I know. Now, I'm, open to being corrected here. If someone can find an account of the Goleta crime scene that does this 8-point sequence, or a sequence as logical as this, and can send it to me, I don't need to be first. I'm not Neil Armstrong. But why is this so hard for Quester to understand? Why is the narrative of Goleta so fucked up that you have Paul Holes inventing these melees, coming up with these theories that don't make any sense? So, Paul Holes, question for you. Is Sanchez getting into a fist fight with Joe D'Angelo with a gunshot wound in his face? Or does the gunshot wound happen during the melee? Because if the gunshot wound happens during the melee, why is it at a downward angle? You see? And if then you could argue, well, okay, well maybe he hit him with the lawn plugger and then shot him. Then why is he in the closet? Face down. He's in the closet face down because the gunshot happens first. If he hits him, Sanchez is going to go down where he is. It's a lawn plugger. As soon as that strike from a lawn plugger hits Greg Sanchez, he has to fall down or he's already down. Because I'm sure it was catastrophic. And I don't even think that this whole idea Sanchez reanimates, stirs, or death rattles, I don't think he was necessarily conscious for this. Or was functional. This reanimation could have been as simple as like that, which we know it's called the death rattle or agonal breathing. It could have been something that happened that was just enough to show D'Angelo that Sanchez was alive. Now, was he going to survive those wounds? Probably not. But D'Angelo, for practicality's sake, wanted to be 100% sure there was no living witnesses, and so he hit him 24 times. So I think what happened is that one bludgeon happens, or one strike or blow from the bludgeon happens first, say right after the gunshot, and the other 23 come afterward, or come moments later. I don't think it's 24 strikes from start to finish, boom, 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 1 through 24. It could be 2, 22, it could be, 3, 21, that's pointless. I think it's one time, just because we know from the circumstances that D'Angelo has experience killing his victims with a single blow. You can see from the Cheri Domingo hit what power a lawn plugger would yield. I wish that I had a ballistic head so we could test it. I know that sounds really fucked, guys, but I think it's important to build an accurate understanding of what happened here. Because this is the one case in all of Irons where nobody can get the damn thing right. Nobody has any clue, not even Paul Holes. Paul Holes is a train wreck theory. I'm going to start calling that hypothesis train wreck theory. The Goleta train wreck theory. And that is where there was a melee between Greg Sanchez and Joe D'Angelo. And why do people cling to this? I think for a couple reasons. I think 3 reasons. One is that they can't make sense of the sequence, which is what we've done here with these 8 points. We've clarified everything in these points. 2 is that they want Greg Sanchez to be this martyr hero that goes out duking it out with the Irons, which didn't happen. And 3, they are being told bullshit. And so their understanding of this crime is all screwed up. And here's the really messed up part. If you need Sanchez to go out duking it out with the Irons to be a hero, then you. Because he is a hero with or without that. Because when the flashlight turned on, Sanchez immediately jumped into action and went to attack Irons. Didn't say he did attack Irons. Didn't say he got into a fight with him. But he went for it. And that is why he's a fucking legend. I'm not taking away from anything, because there is no there is no shame in the way that any of these people acted when this situation took place for them. At all. The Harringtons were compliant and bound, probably because Keith Harrington gambled and he thought, if I comply, I won't be killed. And that is every reasonable assumption to make, and no one can hold that against him. He had no way of knowing that he was in the presence of the most sick motherfucker, dirtbag piece of crap that ever happened to this earth. Okay? So you don't need Sanchez to go out duking it out with Irons to be a hero, and if you do, then you're a jerk. Because he already is. All it took to a moment of magnitudes of courage, bravery, and glorious combat occurred in the second or the instant that Greg Sanchez went to roll out of bed. He proved himself to be a fucking badass. The second that he tried to even consider confronting Irons. It doesn't require him to do that to be a badass. I'm not saying that Keith Harrington isn't a badass or anything. I'm saying Keith Harrington gambled wrong. And most people, in most cases, comply and you'll be okay, statistically speaking. This is not statistics. This was an outlier. This was the world's most violent fucking offender that happened here. And so just because Harrington gambled wrong, it doesn't take anything out of his character. So if you need Sanchez to go out in a fist fight with D'Angelo, then you're just a dirtbag. Is that like what was Paul Holes doing spreading that story? It's not true. He's a terrible detective, guys. You know? And they say, well, how dare you? He caught Irons. He did something that we all were anticipating going on anyway. All he did was convert the DNA profile and submit it. Everybody knew that was how we were going to get this guy eventually. Pretty much. It was talked about on Pro Boards. Don't believe me? Go back through the Pro Boards archives and you will see that there are at least, 3 to 5 people who suggested that. Said, why don't you run it through GEDmatch? And the only counter-argument that they got from anybody, such as Drifter or the other moderators of the forum, was, oh, well, there might be legal problems with that. But the idea was already floating around to submit the DNA to GEDmatch. It wasn't like Paul Holes came up with this brilliant idea. He didn't. It's lied. It's made up. And that story has been tossed around too. Paul Holes said he saw Barbara Ray Venter's work in the Women in the Barrel case or whatever, and he said, I wonder if we could do this for Irons. That isn't true. That's not what happened. The concept had been brought up on Pro Boards. I've seen it with my own eyes. And we know Paul Holes was active on there, or at least, reading the stuff on there. So not only did he not come up with that idea, but it wasn't really unexpected. You know? So what did Paul Holes ever get right? It is mythological nonsense that, and I don't know why I point, but I want to show this is not mythological nonsense, what you see on this board. This makes perfect fucking sense. It is mythological nonsense, like the Greg Sanchez got into a fist fight with Irons, that has muddied the waters of this case, and now everybody thinks, go on Reddit reddit.com/r/Irons, and the prevailing narrative is that Sanchez and Irons duked it out. Why? Because Paul Holes suggested it. And he is wrong. He's wrong. Send this video to Paul Holes, somebody. He's a bad detective. You know? What was he? Look, guys, look at his track record in Irons. What was Paul Holes pushing for? I don't like to, bullet point the flaws of other people and stuff like that. In research efforts, because I get it. We all get shit wrong, okay? But at a certain point, we have to consider the track record of people when we deem whether or not we're going to believe their additional stories. Paul Holes think G-Men control the Iran's amateur board. The mods trying to deny CBK was JJD by pretending VPNs don't exist. Yeah, and he actually doesn't even need a VPN because the geolocation could have just failed. Reno, Nevada is 75 miles away from Citrus Heights, supposedly. And your geolocation can be off by 100 miles or more sometimes. I've seen mine, look at your iPhone. It resolves to Cupertino or whatever. And I know that's not so much geolocation as it is just default settings. But, there is no proof so far in JJD frequented Reno. Yeah, I mean, he probably is CBK. He probably really is CBK. I don't have the proof of it, but I do think it. So what did Paul Holes think? Paul Holes told us that Visalia Ransacker was not, let's call this Holes score, I guess. I don't know. Just to separate it from this brilliant stuff that you see here. I'm not saying I'm brilliant, I'm just saying that this makes sense and nothing else makes sense. Visalia Ransacker, not EAR. Wrong. Wrong. Iran's primary employment was construction or neighborhood developments. Wrong. I mean, it's hard to write like that, but you guys get it. Paul Holes was wrong about everything in this case, and he was shooting in the dark until the DNA came back. And he rests on the laurels of these DNA achievements as if he's this brilliant detective, but he's not. He's not. You see how my opinions change, guys, over time, and it's okay to do that. I used to say Paul Holes for president, dude. It was like, oh, he captured Irons. Irons' capture was a matter of time. It was just a matter of waiting for the technology to catch up. And it did. Why did Paul Holes think he wasn't the Visalia Ransacker? Because he was operating with a flawed assumption of the description of the Visalia Ransacker, that he should have known better. Since we're talking conspiracy theories and my buddy Murder Inc. is here, what do you think about the possibility that Paul Holes deliberately led us off track of linking Visalia to EAR because he suspected that they were on the right track with Exeter officers? And I'm okay with making an amends to Tony Reed if... Here's what Tony Reed has to do for me to make an amends, and I don't want to, give him an ultimatum or anything, but you have to admit that you were trying to be shady with the serology factors thing of the Sacramento 79 rape. I mean, yeah, we might agree. It might even be. It probably is an EAR rape in 79 in Sacramento. It almost certainly is EAR. But I don't even want to get down that rabbit hole. You guys saw what I said. It's in Iran's news. Tony Reed says sneak your shit online. he has to admit that he said sneaky shit. If he does that, if Tony Reed can come forward and say, hey, look, man, I was trying to be sneaky on Facebook. I was trying to be sneaky here. I was trying to be sneaky there. I'm way open to reconciling everything with him. Fine. But that has to be admitted first. He was caught. I caught him trying to be sneaky. And, you know, we got to hold each other accountable, though. If I ever try to be sneaky murdering, hold me accountable to it. What I will tell you guys is that I will put in every honest effort that I can ever have to never try to be sneaky in true crime, because the murder victims don't deserve that shit. That's fucked off. Let's not be sneaky. Okay? What if Paul Holes, who you call dirty, and I'm not disagreeing with you or anything, what if he was trying to deliberately throw us off track that the Visalia ransacker was the East Area rapist? Because he should have known that the Peter Burgess description of the Visalia ransacker was a different offender than the guy who shot Beth Snelling's dad, Claude Snelling. The guy who shot Claude Snelling was not Peter Burgess, and the description that Paul Holes ran all around town with for years of the Visalia ransacker was not a description of the Visalia ransacker. It was a description of Peter Burgess. And he used that flawed description to suggest that the EAR could not be the Visalia ransacker, which is not true. We know that now. We know that the Visalia ransacker was the East Area rapist. And you know what, man? Applause and kudos to Paul Holes for admitting he was wrong there. That's good. Good. Admit you're wrong when you're wrong, because the murder victims deserve that. You know, don't double down on your fucked up theories when your fucked up theories get replaced by shit that makes more sense. Don't try to argue with the logic. I mean, you can, but it's like trying to fight with the ocean. At a certain point, guys, this makes so much sense that it would be asinine to argue against something similar to this. Because what we know is that what happened in Goleta made sense that night. It wasn't magic. It wasn't sorcery. It wasn't time travel. The EAR did not bring a magic wand to the Goleta crime scene. He was operating with the same human laws of physics that all of us have. When I drop this, it falls. Okay? Can't do anything about it. Just because you don't understand when I dropped it doesn't mean I didn't. Okay? But trying to argue against a logic... And I'm not saying that this is definitely what happened. But it's something like this, if not this. Because this makes linear sense. This follows the laws of physics and logic. The Quester theory doesn't. The Sanchez fight theory doesn't. It doesn't follow logic. It doesn't work. It has to be this, or similar to this. What do I think is really going on? I think that it's a variation of this that's very close to, but not exactly that. And we'll never know, because D'Angelo is never going to tell us. But at least this one is based on Earth. The Paul Holes theory, not on Earth. The Quester theory, not on Earth. Those are in a galaxy far, far away. So don't double down on those galaxy far, far away theories, the train wreck theory. Because then we have to question your integrity as a researcher and as an investigator. Now, I don't know if Quester is going to deny this and double down. I don't know his I've heard some stuff about his Visalia double down. But let's not double down on crap. Can we not do that, guys? If we're wrong, look, if my 8-point theory is wrong here, I'm not going to be like, no, hold on, but my 8-point theory. Paul Holes knows that Iran's killed Donna Richmond and is helping them cover it up. That's dark. How dare he then, if that's true? Hard for me to say what Paul Holes knows, because I can't get into his mind. But I'm not sure I'd really want to go there anyway, because it appears to be a place where logic and reasoning do not exist. And let's rest on the laurels of someone else's work forever, which is retarded. So, but let's not double down on garbage, you know? I don't want to... Where else have I been wrong? You know, I'm trying to think. Probably all kinds of places. If I find out that I'm wrong about it, like let's say I find out that there is no possible way that Zodiac wore a wig at Lake Berryessa, which how is that the case? Not Drew Beeson. I'm not going to double down and say, no, that's impossible. Like, that's what Drew Beeson said. He doubled down and he said, no, it's impossible that Zodiac wore a wig at Lake Berryessa. No, it's not. We already know he has experience with adhesives. Maybe he glued it to his head. Maybe the mask was designed in such a way that the wig can't move. I don't know. Maybe the wig was attached to the mask permanently. Though it's not likely that that's the case, because the hair was seen before the mask was put on. So anyway, that's a whole other thing. But let's not double down on wrong ideas just to be right. I can't stand that shit. Because you might as well just go and piss on Greg Sanchez's grave. Fuck it, you know? If your intention in true crime is that you would rather be right than shape your opinions based on evidence and based on logic, then you're not doing true crime. You're just a role player. You're not a true crime researcher because you're not researching true crime. You're researching how right you are. You know? And that's ridiculous. You might as well go piss on Greg Sanchez's grave. Because the truth should be known. The truth should be uncovered. The truth should be spread. You know? And the funny part is, the truth always will be uncovered and spread. So you can try to run, like some of these folks do, forever from the facts. But at a certain point, you end up being Thomas Henry Horan, screaming to yourself behind a paywall and laughing at nothing. And everyone knows that you're insane. And now you're not a credible researcher anymore. You're just insane. And that difference happens when you start knowingly doing these things. It's okay if I'm wrong about something in Zodiac, or I'm wrong here in this 8-point presentation of Goleta. This is the truth as I believe it. I believe this to be true, these 8 things here. You can probably tell from the level of passion with which I'm delivering this presentation that I believe that this is what happened. I'm not pushing this so that I can sell you more books. I don't have a book to sell, thank God. But I wouldn't do that anyway. I'm pushing this because I think this is what happened. It's easy, guys. It's so easy to just be like, here's what I think happened, and then say it. And if you're wrong, then that's cool because you have a new thing to tell us about what you think happened. And nobody's mad. Nobody's mad. You know? It isn't... I didn't feud it out with Tony Reed, or, you know, trash on Tony Reed because I thought he was wrong. I trashed on Tony Reed because I thought he was being sneaky. There's a huge difference. We're all wrong. We're humans. I don't fucking know what... I mean, if, like, let's say there's a number behind this door, and it's written on a piece of paper, and someone says, what number's written on the door? And I go, 3. And they go, no, it was an 8. And then I go, no, it wasn't. Do you see how insane that is? It's so easy to just be like, oh, it was an 8. I thought it was a 3 at first, but it's an 8. No one fucking cares. You don't hurt your reputation that way. Nobody cares. People aren't mad at Paul Holes because he was wrong about the Visalia ransacker, though we can, kind of assess what we think of future hypotheses based on that. We're annoyed with Paul Holes if we're annoyed with Paul Holes because he's bullshitting. That's what so why do people do this shit? Why are people so... It's like such a self-defeating behavior. It's like, I want to be seen as credible, therefore I'm going to lie. Like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Just be wrong. It's fine. It doesn't hurt. I can't even... damn, dude. Thank God that God has given me the intellectual honesty to be capable of doing that, because I can't imagine what it must be like to have to double down on bullshit just because you want it to be that you were right. How do these people live? They must be so unpleasant to be around. Can you imagine? Can you imagine being around someone who's just like, no, I'm going to double down? Now, if they're lying because they are trying to be liars, then at least I'll give them respect for owning the shit. But it's like, sometimes they aren't even trying to be liars, and they lie because their pride won't let them be wrong. Or like they don't want to be a liar, but they're trying to be a liar because their pride, you know what I mean? It's like they're running from themselves. That's fucked up. There's a fucked up psychology happening there, guys, and you can dissect it and get really down in the weeds with it. Be like, why do people like Thomas Henry Horan double down on bullshit when they know it's bullshit? Are they running from themselves? Are they running from reality in general? Because Zodiac is not the only time that Thomas Henry Horan is running away from fucking reality. I almost guarantee you. I can't say for sure, but I'm making an educated guess that Thomas Henry Horan does this in other areas of his life too. And who wants to be around that shit? Can you imagine? Hey, can you take the trash out? Oh, it's not trash night. Oh, yes it is. Trash night is Thursday night. It's Friday. Fuck, man. What unpleasant people they must be. Nightmare. All they had to do was be like, oh, I just checked my calendar. It is actually, right now it's Friday, but this is a hypothetical scenario. I just checked my calendar. It is Thursday night. I should take the trash out. And they'd be like, oh, thanks. We don't fucking care that you didn't know what day it was. We only care when you knew what day it was and you continued to adhere to the claim that it was not that day. Because then you're a liar. And now you won't take the trash out because you just don't want to do it. Not because you didn't think you had to do it. That's way different. This is such basic shit, guys. This is why law enforcement becomes jaded and cynical with true crime people. People are like, well, law enforcement is being mean and they won't give us their files. It's like, because you guys are a nightmare. Fuck, man. No wonder they don't want to give us the files, because you guys are train wrecks. Because you're still clinging to the Don Chaney theory. And it's impossible to wear a wig under a mask. Why is it impossible? Because I want Don Chaney to be the Zodiac. Not because it's really impossible. Of course you can wear a wig under a mask. Anyone fucking knows that. I'll prove it. Does Drew Beeson need me to prove it? I'll prove it. I am more than happy to prove that you can wear a wig under a mask and it won't fucking get in the way. Do I need to do that? I'll figure it out. My wife has a wig. We have a blue wig. We have a blue wig and I have a ski mask. I will prove to you that both can be worn in concert. with no problems at all. It's ridiculous. Can Drew Beeson do that? Drew Beeson, can you prove to me that it's impossible to wear a wig under a mask? He won't do an experiment. Because that would allow it to not be Don Chaney, possibly. And he can't have that. So that's where I start calling people out. I came into this community, I have been calling people out from the beginning. I started with Donald Falk and just went through it like a fucking wrecking ball. And sometimes people don't like that, and sometimes I'm not well received because of it. That's fine. I'd rather my crew of people be honest people. I would rather have 5 honest, good viewers than have 25 liars and prideful dorks that can't take accountability for when they're fucking wrong. Oh, but my numbers, my revenue. Fuck your revenue. Greg Sanchez got murdered. You know? It's really sick. If you guys want to do fucking fantasy football, go play fantasy football. Get out of Zodiac Land. Get out of Erons. Get out of it. Because people died, man. It's one of the things that's like something... I don't resent these people. I don't have, like, hatred for them. I really don't. I just don't want to see them doing this to themselves because it's like, why do you want to live like that? And if it takes a band prowler live from a spinning ball to, you know, kind of turn a light switch on in your head that you've been a dirtbag, then maybe that's what it takes. But sometimes that doesn't work. And if it doesn't work, then fine. You don't have to watch. Drew Beeson doesn't watch my show anymore. He used to. Drew Beeson want nothing to do with me anymore. I don't think. I think I've been banned. I've been shadow banned on Drew Beeson's channel since October of 2024. Because I found a hypothesis for Don Chaney that makes more sense than he's the Zodiac Killer. And that can't work for Drew Beeson because he has a book to sell. It's called Sighting In on the Zodiac Killer. No one told him the scope wasn't zeroed correctly, if you know what I mean. Because Zodiac wasn't Don Chaney. It wasn't. It just wasn't him. You know? I don't think. And hey, if the DNA comes out tomorrow and it's Don Chaney, I'll be like, oh fuck, I was wrong there. I won't double down and argue with the DNA. That's what these people do. They fucking double down, man. They're like, no, the DNA is wrong. What the fuck, dude? Paul Holes admits to doing that in his book. Where is his book, man? Oh, fuck. I wish I knew where it was. I think it's in here somewhere. I don't know exactly. He admits it. He's like, I was so sure that Robert Potts was the Erons that when the DNA came back, I was like, run it again. It's like, dude, the DNA proved you wrong, man. Own it. Just admit it. It's fine. Okay, dude. Let's find the Erons then. And thankfully, we finally did. Now we can be safe again. Because the Erons has been found. But, like, can we not argue with DNA profiles? Can we just stop that? Because the odds, when the DNA came back on D'Angelo, the odds were 1 in 17 septillion that it was an alternate donor or contributor. You're going to argue with those odds? You have a 17 septillion in 1 chance of being right. Those are the worst odds ever. Why do you think the guy pled guilty immediately? What's his defense attorney going to say? Fucking disaster. But the truth isn't always so cut and dry like that. Sometimes it requires like a breakdown of the logic like this, and this is not flawless. I'm not saying this is 100% what happened. You know, maybe there's some issues here. If we find them, and if someone says, "Oh, here's the crime scene photos," you're wrong about that. And I look at those crime scene photos and I'm like, oh, that doesn't work for this. Then I'll be like, okay, there's a problem with this hypothesis. I won't say there's a problem with the crime scene photos. That's retarded. Now, we don't have that exculpatory proof in my hypothesis here. But there's no fucking problem with the hard data. The problem is in your interpretation of the hard data. And people, oh, well, my interpretation is flawless. I am God. It's like, no, you're... the fuck, man? What's wrong with these people? That's what happens when you give a band Prowler coffee at fucking 9 o'clock at night on Halloween. It's a Friday night. We can do this shit. This is a lot of fun. I love trashing on bullshitters. It's my favorite. I got it from Owen Benjamin. And look, guys, I don't listen to Owen Benjamin anymore. Because he says some crazy shit now. He's like, the Earth cannot be a globe. Yes, it can. It can. It's just that you won't believe that it can be. And so everything else you have to work around that. It's like you are going in with a predetermined conclusion. The predetermined conclusion is that Don Chaney was the Zodiac Killer. So all evidence must match that. Otherwise, it's wrong. Because my predetermined conclusion is the only way. It's my way or the fucking highway. And your highways are fucked up. It's like, the Earth can be a globe. In fact, it almost certainly is. Guys, 2 years ago, I would have said the complete opposite. I would have said, no, it's almost, sir, I'm positive it's flat. I fucking, you know. I think I even, oh my god, this is a fucked up concept. I don't even want to get into that. I think one time I said I bet my life it was flat. No wonder why I had a cardiac arrest in 2022. I'm not linking that. This is a rhetorical joke. But, like, you see the reversal that's there? And that reversal is not because I'm so flippant that I can't make my mind up. It's that the evidence came out, and so we got to switch, man. That's all there is to it. And the evidence comes out, you just got to switch. Or if the logic is undeniable, like this, we have to switch our opinion. Because nothing else works. If you can find me something that works better than this, then let's hear it. Because then it'll be on the board. And we can remove some of this stuff. Greg Sanchez deserves this narrative to be accurate. Because he stood up to the Irons. He didn't fist fight with him. That's retarded. But he stood up to him. And so he deserves the truth. And so does Keith Harrington. You know. Because they died for this. They died in this. And so then trying to deny reality at the expense of the truth of their murders is evil. It's evil. Was the Zodiac Arthur Lee Allen? I think so. Could I be wrong? Yeah. Yeah, could be wrong. Could totally be wrong. I'm at the point where I don't even look at that case anymore until the DNA comes out. And Murder Inc. says the DNA will never come out because there's a law enforcement cover-up, and maybe that's true. That would suck. But what are we going to do? You know, argue with... We don't know. You end up like these dumbasses who are like, oh, the handwriting rules people out. No, it doesn't. And I'll give you this, Murder Inc. The handwriting on the D'Angelo police reports is like scary close to Zodiac. Let's pull it up. Murder Inc. will like this. It's Friday night. Happy Halloween, everybody. Let's talk about the Zodiac for a second. Dude. This freaks me out, man. This shit freaks me out. Dude, that looks so much like the Zodiac Killer's handwriting, it freaks me out. What a fucking trip, man. There's differences. There are... Oh my god, that's scary. That looks so much like the Zodiac Killer that I don't have an explanation for you yet. Look at this. Look at this fucking weird shit going on here. For those of you who are familiar enough with Zodiac's handwriting, you'll see it right away. But if it requires... Okay, let's leave that up, and then let's do the debut letter of the Zodiac Killer. Debut of the Zodiac. I consider the debut of the Zodiac letter to be the textbook of an accurate representation of what we consider Zodiac Killer's handwriting. Of the Zodiac letter. It is the metric by which to judge all other things. Fuck is it? Well, let's just go with the this one. Is this a terrible resolution, like fucking 100 pixels by 100 pixels bullshit? Let's not have that. It's a WebIP. Of course it is. Of fucking course it is. Stop with the WebIPs. It's disgusting. Oh, my copyright. Stop trying to profit off the Zodiac Killer, you dirtbag. Okay, let's no more profiting from Zodiac. Can we not do that? Thanks. Okay. Oh, but we had to put an advertisement. No, you didn't. You wanted to. Zodiac handwriting. Do. Anyway, it's irrelevant. Because I think Zodiac was writing with synthetic handwriting. I've shown that. You know. But, look at this. It's pretty neat, actually, there. There's some differences. Let's look at these. It's pretty trippy, man. Look at those. Well, there's differences, but it doesn't prove anything anyway. I think handwriting science is fucking retarded anyway. But, like, it's synthetic. I've said this for years, guys. But it's pretty similar looking. It freaks me out a little bit, except how come all the A's are all instinctually capitalized? Because he's used to writing his own last name, so he capitalizes every A. And Zodiac doesn't do that. But again, Zodiac's writing synthetic handwriting, so it doesn't really mean much. I think it's a closer match to Alan's handwriting, but it's a closer match to Alan's linguistics. Go to the website zodiacconfess.wordpress.com. RP Ackerman is a viewer here, and I think he's on a right track. Harrington's next-door neighbor's sister was murdered in Laguna Niguel in-house. Harrington's neighbor owner with a crossbow. It's pretty weird how murder follows these people around like that. Yeah, I agree. It's a little bit weird. But shit, dude. Anyway, I was gonna yeah. The eye dots are the thing that everyone points to. That the Exorcist letter has eye dots, circled eye dots, and then the same in the D'Angelo police report. But it's like, you know, that doesn't mean too much to me in the first place. I think it's Arthur Lee Allen. But if it's not, and it turns out to be D'Angelo, I won't argue with DNA. I won't tell you something is impossible that clearly isn't impossible, like wearing a wig under a mask, in order to substantiate my claim. And you know he's doing it knowingly. Come on. Here's how this is the moment that I became very disillusioned with Drew Beeson. I gave him a beautiful case hypothesis of what was up with Don Chaney. In fact, It all started when I released a video or a stream on the old channel called What the Fuck Was Up with Don Chaney. So I did this stream called What the Fuck Was Up with Don Chaney. I was thinking it was Don Chaney, it was Zodiac. And before I finished making that video, I realized, oh, there's a better answer. And I crafted this thing called the Don Chaney solution, and we can do a separate video on it because it's been since removed from the internet thanks to prowlers. But I realized that there was a better answer, and that Don Chaney wasn't lying to the cops because he was the Zodiac. But because he was trying to get the cops to look at Alan, was basically what the takeaway from my little theory, my hypothesis, was that Don Chaney lied to the police so that they would look at Alan. And it's very solid. And I showed it to Drew Beeson, and he wouldn't even address it. He shadow banned me. So that was the moment I was like, oh, this guy's no good. And then more stuff started to happen. He started, being friends with Thomas Henry Horan after the things that Horan was saying on, like, slandering people, just dirtbag shit, just, like, calling them devil worshippers and stuff, which is insane, And Manny's not a devil worshipper. That's so dumb. And Thomas Henry Horan's like, yeah, Manny's dad is in the CIA, and he worships the devil, and he's in on it. I was like, you took too much methamphetamine, and you can't handle it. I've done methamphetamine, and I don't make up shit like that on here. So what the fuck is that? What are the chances Paul Stein and Joe D'Angelo's homes were one house away in a small town of 4,000? Well, higher chances of that in a small town than they are in a large city, but I see your point. I don't know. For all we know, it could be Arthur Lee Allen and Joe D'Angelo. And let me give you something weird. Oh, have you ever heard this, Murder Inc.? I don't know how deep you are in Zodiac, and specifically Lee Allen. But Allen had a mole within the San Francisco Police Department or within another jurisdiction of the police departments as of 1971. And he said, I heard from a different police officer. No, as of 1986. Allen let slip that another police officer was feeding him holdback information in an interview on the news. And he was right, which adds legitimacy to his claim, because yes, in fact, Ralph Spinelli was running from robbery charges, and a police officer, it was Allen's allegation that a police officer had told him that. Who was this police officer? We don't know. I've said it for a while. I said, who was Lee Allen's mole? Because Allen had a mole in the police departments. Who was that? Not sure. But what if there's a conspiracy between Arthur Lee Allen and other police officers up to and possibly including Joe D'Angelo in order to orchestrate mass killings? It's a conspiracy theory, sure. I'm a bit of a conspiracy theorist, and I like pitching ideas like that. I'm not saying it happened. What we can say happened, what definitely happened, is that Allen did have a mole. He admitted it. And people say, oh, well, how do you know it was a mole? Because he was feeding him holdback information. He shouldn't have been telling him that stuff. He was telling him information that he should not have been telling the prime suspect in the Zodiac case, but he did. We can confirm he did because the information was accurate. So Allen had to get that from somewhere. Where did he get it from? Can't say. Don't know. But some dirty cop. So maybe there's something that happens in the military where these guys get together and they use military service to conspire. I don't know. Murder Inc., here's a question for you, and I mean, don't know that whatever your hypothesis is here, I'm not going to assume that you're stating it as fact, but just as your opinion, what do you think is going on? Like, is there a police thrill killing clubs? Is this a satanic conspiracy? Are these guys like in a secret society? What's going on here that you think? If just hypothetically speak, like, what do you think it is? Because it could be anything. Really, I don't fucking know. You know what I like about Murder Inc.? Murder Inc. is pitching wild conspiracy theories to us. Now, I don't mean wild as in illegitimate. I mean wild as in, like, whoa, conspiracy theories to us. But he's not doing it dishonestly. He's just saying, hey, here's what I think, here's the news articles. And I love that kind of shit. That's great. It's the people are being sketchy that I don't like. And Murder Inc., he's really good at throwing us the most wild-sounding conspiracy theories and just being like, here's why I think it. And you can have any belief you want. D'Angelo could have done 9/11 as long as, like, you know, facts don't come out and then you deny the facts, then it's different. And you can even unknowingly deny facts, and that's okay. It's knowingly denying the facts that becomes a problem. I'm totally open to the possibility of police thrill killing clubs. Why not? You know? It could totally fucking happen. I think it's Joe with a few accomplices. Lisk looks like a cult conspiracy. Oh my god, how creepy is that? Dude, that's so creepy. Yeah, I should read your Long Island serial killer section. Because I just never got into it because it's in New York and I'm from California. So they're kind of like on another thing. You know, we're like, oh, what are those guys doing in New York? Walking here? I just never looked at it. It's huge news, though, right now, of course. And Huerman's going down. He's fucked. But I think it's Joe with a few accomplices. Yeah. Not unreasonable. Do I think it? I mean, I'd be surprised just because I think that Joe D'Angelo was operating from motivations based entirely in his sex drive, and I think you'd have to be... How do you find people who are into that, too? Like, here's a challenge question for you. Where did Joe D'Angelo find other people who also wanted to bind people and rape them and beat them to death? I mean, it's kind of a specific kink that he had. It's like, do you get horny looking at neighborhood layouts? Oh, that's creepy. Oh, his cousin, yeah. Yeah, I saw that. You know, where do you find other people with that, especially before the internet? Like, hey, do you get horny looking at neighborhoods and putting dishes on people's back? And he's like, yeah, that's so hot. Oh, his brother? Yeah. Are you turned on when you jump fences? Like, yeah. Like, and then to make matters worse, hey, are you turned on when you jump fences, study neighborhood layouts, walk through canals, and then put dishes on people's back, and then whisper? It's like, yes, I have all of those points. It's very specific paraphilias at work with Joe D'Angelo, which, I mean, yeah, it could be the case, but... Because I do think he was getting horny looking at neighborhood layouts. Imagine, like, you find someone and you're like, dude, do you know what's the hottest thing ever? Like, what? When a neighborhood connects to... What the fuck, dude? Hey... Dude, you want to... I can't do it. I can't do it. Dude, you want to hear the hottest thing ever? Yeah. When one... That's crazy. Maybe. Dude, weirder shit has happened. They landed on the moon, dude. So all bets are out at that point. Anything can happen if you can land on the moon. Basically. Within reason. It has to abide by the laws of physics and logic. But yeah, that could happen. Logically speaking, there could be another guy and he's like, they're at a bar and he's like, do you know, dude, you know what the hottest thing ever is? And he's like, what? When one neighborhood connects to another neighborhood through a shadowy walking path, the other guy's like, dude. Yeah, that just gets so turned on by when one neighborhood connects to another neighborhood through a walking path. Wow. Maybe his brother, yeah. They were both missing a finger. In fact, D'Angelo's brother has a burglary rap sheet. How come no one except 1226 is investigating JJD more crimes? I don't know, but I'll tell you why. It's not that I'm not investigating them, it's that the narrative is so difficult to determine that I require DNA proof to make a definitive assessment. I'm open to anything being D'Angelo. He could have done fucking 9/11. He was free. But if the DNA isn't there, then I just can't say for sure. And so it's like, maybe. And other people don't have that standard. So Tony Reed doesn't have that standard, and good on him for it. Just I hope, because when he's shady, then I don't want to look at what he does. I like looking at what you do, Murder Inc., because you're not suspicious so far. You've never, so far that I've seen, you've never said anything where I'm like, oh, this guy's lying to me. Whereas with Tony Reed, that's not the case. So I want to see your investigations. I don't really want to see Tony Reed's investigations. Until he admits he was being shady. Or at least he addresses it. If he wants to say, no, I wasn't being shady, here's why I said that, and he gives me a plausible explanation for why he said that, and it checks out, then I'll also make my amends to him. Fine. I'm at a position right now where I'm early on in the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, and if Tony Reed says something to prove me and my accusations baseless and wrong before I get to that 9th step, he'll be on it. Happily. I will make an amends to Tony Reed for it. But so far, he has not addressed his sneakiness. So, I want to see your research, because you haven't been sneaky. All I've ever seen you do is dig up news articles and say, hey, what if this is JJD? I think this is JJD. And that's fine. I think fucking, all kinds of stuff. And if we're honest about it, then that is a great foundation to work from. Because then, let's say you get some really powerful, damning fucking evidence that's enough to convince me, then I'll believe you when you give it to me. I'll believe that you're telling the truth, because you haven't shown me to be a liar. If Tony Reed comes to me and says, look at this, and I go, well, yeah, but you were shady last year. So how do I know? I thought he was saying serology report indicated blood info that matches small percentage consistent with JJD and SAC cops deny. I don't think so. No, I think he just brought it up because he actually, as far as I know, he doesn't have... No, I don't think that's what happened. And maybe I'm wrong. I think he was trying to be shady. Because does he have the serology report? Sacramento never released those medical records, did they? So, maybe I'm just wrong. Fine. Like I said, guys, it's so easy. If Tony Reed's the coolest fucking dude in the world and I just slandered him for like a half a year, then that was fucked up. But I thought he was being shady and that's why I did it. I'm not really justifying. He helped victims sue for them, I think. Maybe that's the case. Then fine. Maybe I just slandered him for 4 months. I don't fucking know. I was high on drugs when I made that video anyway. But at the same time, I only ever trashed on Tony Reed because I believed he was lying. If it turns out that he wasn't lying and I was just wrong, then I have no bad words for him. People say, well, you should make a public apology. It's like, what's that going to do? What's better is me saying, okay, I was wrong here. If this happens, say I was wrong here, Tony Reed isn't shady, and then I would go forth on every stream and say, hey, remember that time that I said he was shady and it turns out he wasn't? I would happily do that. I would make an amends for that. I have to see the proof, though, before, because right now it looked to me like he was being shady. Maybe fucking... remember when I trashed on Richard Grinell? I went off on Richard Grinell. I was on amphetamines when I did it. I went off on him. And then I was like, oops. Turns out he was just wrong. And I was just bagging on him. You can't take it too personally. Because I'm only attacking the character of liars. I'm not attacking someone's character and calling them a liar because I don't think they're a liar. That would be evil. That would be slander and libel. I'm doing it because I genuinely believe someone to be lying, and so I called them out for it. And then if it turns out I'm wrong, then I'm just wrong. Whoops. It's not like the damage is that... I mean, there's not much damage. I'm yelling to a crowd of like 3 people. So... And I would make videos about it. I would be like, hey, Tony Reed, Iran's news. Tony Reed not shady, new Coke's retarded. I would happily do that. But I have to see the proof. Iran's news. I mean, yeah, that could very well be the case. I just have to see the proof. Can he show me the serology reports? If he shows them to me and he proves to me that he has them, because here's another problem that I have with 1226. They said that they ruled out Joe D'Angelo as being the EAR because they thought his name would mean he was too swarthy, but they were looking at his picture. Because the picture is not a swarthy guy, it's a white guy, so what the fuck are they talking about? It's like it's inconsistent. Now, is he wrong about the Maggiores being abducted? Yeah, obviously. It's shoelace caught on the revolver. He wasn't trying to abduct them in the driveway, I don't think. That's crazy. But maybe I'm just wrong about that too. Maybe I'm fucking wrong about everything I think. Fine. Fuck it, fine. It's okay. And I would go Iran's news, Vincent retarded, Tony Reed smart. I'm okay with that. You know, that he's a fucking lawyer. He has a higher fucking education than I do. So he might just be smarter than me. That's fine. What am I going to do? Double down and cry? Who cares? But I don't support shadiness. So if he wasn't being shady, and I know that the burden of proof really isn't on him, but I won't change my opinion without evidence. So if I can see the serology factor reports and it turns out that claim was relevant, then I will totally adjust. What year do you think JGD started killing? I don't know. I think that I have seen conclusive evidence to believe that he was the Claude Snelling shooter, in which case my current belief is that he started killing in 75, but it's very possible that he started killing before that. You know? It's totally possible. I just haven't seen the proof yet. CBK said 65. That's crazy. Yeah. I mean, very possible, man. And when I say crazy, I don't mean it's wrong. I mean that it would be a trip if that's the case. It's totally possible. Maybe he shot Claude Snelling to death 10 years after the start of his murders. I don't know. But why does he bludgeon the Smiths without covering them, but then begin covering his victims after the Smiths? It seems to suggest that the first time he ever bludgeoned someone was the Smiths. Beckendorf and Kell in 67 Rancho Cordova. Very possible. Why did he start covering his victims after the Smiths? Why didn't he cover the Smiths? Can't explain that. I can't explain that, I mean. I don't know. If Tony Reed can show me the serology reports, I'll just make a video that says Tony Reed smart, Vincent McConnell retarded. I'll actually do that. I don't care. You can call it worse. And people they can't do that. Like, you think Drew Beeson's ever gonna make a video called fucking Don Chaney smart, Drew Beeson retarded? Like, no. He has too much pride. I don't fucking care. Let me play you a Green Day song called No Pride. And it harms people to not be able to do that. It's fun. It's fun. You go, well, that's self-deprecating humor. But it would be true, based in a sense. It would be exaggerated truth. I'm not retarded. But, like, there would be an element of truth in that if I were wrong about the serology report. It would mean that I was tweaking and I jumped the gun. Which I've done before. You know? Possible. Yeah, I don't know. If you have DNA, then I'll be like, oh shit, he started killing at that time. I think we all know he shot Claude Snelling. He pled guilty to it, so he definitely did that. This has been a really long stream, guys, but it's Happy Halloween. I don't know if there's been any trick-or-treaters. I was supposed to go jumping over people's fences in a ski mask tonight. And then my wife was like, yeah, you probably shouldn't do that. I was like, yeah, you're right. It's probably a bad idea. Everyone told me that. I was like, hey, should I go trick-or-treating by jumping over back fences and knocking on the sliding glass door? And they're like, no. I was like, okay. Again, you know, Tony Reed smart, Vincent McConnell retarded. I don't care. Like, good. If I'm wrong, good. I don't want Tony Reed to be a liar. It's not that I want that to be the case. I don't need to be right about that. People are like, how did he do that? It's so hard. I don't know. Dude, I have so much mucus from being sick. I was sick Tuesday, Wednesday. Well, really Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. It was awful. And, hold on. I'm just going to go cough up a bunch of disgusting phlegm. And then kind of feel out the vibe in the room over here. See if we can keep going. Should keep going, I should say. Garlic sticks. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I guess we've covered it all. I like how this started as like a really serious and legitimate presentation about Goleta, and it just devolved into a stream about how if I'm wrong about Tony Reed, I'll make a stream called Tony Reed Smart, Vincent McConnell Retarded. That's the best part of Nuco, because you never know what the fuck's gonna happen next. People are like, does he have a mental disorder? I wish I had more coffee. I do, it's just I have to make it. I don't have time for that.
Okay.
Welcome to my show!
Hi.
I like how Murder Inc. is here for like 3 hours at a time. He's so cool.
Who are you talking to?
Murder Inc.
Before.
When, right now? Murder Inc. He's been here for 3 hours. Murder Inc. My wife says hi. Dude. Dude, he could have started in Vietnam. Or he could have started rather before that. He could have started as a child. We don't know. I just have to see proof. And then I'll just happily be like, oh, he did that. We don't have DNA in the Snelling case, but we have a guilty plea. That's pretty powerful. We also have... Oh, man, what a trip, dude. So this guy just ran around for like fucking 20 years and just did nothing but kill people every day. Can talk about JJD all day, no one else cares. Yeah. I know, isn't it stupid? No one fucking cares. They're like, oh, we caught him, that's the end. It sucks, man. Because this isn't over. You know how they have the whole thing, Golden State Killer, this isn't over? And then everyone was like, oh, it's over. It's like, no, it's not. We don't know what it happened. Paul Holes still think he got into a Super Smash Brothers fight with fucking Greg Sanchez, dude. We don't know what the fuck happened. Let's figure it out. Now, we have to be careful not to let it come at the expense of everything else in life, because it's going to take us the rest of our lives to get to the bottom of what the fuck this guy was doing. And we still won't get there. Murder Inc., you know that the two of us could look into this case for the next 40 years and never be sure of everything he did. So we have to also have a life. You know? But while everyone else is prowling and looking for free candy, we're having real fun. Or they're watching the stupid Dodgers game. Like, who even cares? Who won that? Oh my god, I don't even want to know. Oh. Okay. So the only reason I check is because I want to know what my house manager is going to be like. The Dodgers. You know. But like, we're having real fun here. We're talking about when did Joseph D'Angelo start killing people? And yeah, it sucks that everybody just like went, dude, the pro boards are dead. Let's see what Reddit's up to on Eurons. They don't even post anymore. No one fucking cares. They're just like, oh, it's over. It's like, what's over? And they're like, well, we got him on 13 murders. It's like, well, what about all these other unsolved murders? And they're like, oh, jeez. Let's see what's going on. Police sketches. Oh, jeez. D'Angelo. Let's look into that. What was JJD's psychological drive to kill? It made him horny. That's the answer to that. Yeah. Dead. It's a dead Reddit. Like, what kind of post is this? Look at someone on Reddit says, imagine if a neighbor had suspected D'Angelo and posted it here long before the arrest. Like, what's the point of that thread? Like, but what if D'Angelo had a jetpack? I'm going to go on Reddit right now. Let's see if I can get away with it. I'm going to get banned for it. Let's try it, though. Oops. Let's try. How do I get out of this account? Damn it. How do I get out of this? Why am I logged into this? Log out. Yeah. Yeah, they won, I heard. I just heard.
They did. It was a good game. It was like they had the road blocked out downtown, so it was like all the kids out trick or treating, like little kids. It was cute. We watched the game and then we had our coffee and sat and watched it.
Wow. How creepy. How creepy. Murder Inc. was banned from Reddit. You were banned from Reddit, or you were banned from the Earons Reddit?
Just totally delusional.
Who?
This guy downtown HB that had a stand right next to me. We set these tables. He had like sit talk, but he's talking to the Kardashians and like he was not like mentally there. He was talking to the Kardashians. Like I was like, I called that perma-fried. I'm like, yeah. So then I stood up and I went and sat somewhere else. And sat like across, and then Ellie is like,
So.
Ellie's like looking at me, and he was like.
Okay, Murder Inc. says one girl said on Murder Inc. her ex-boyfriend who was murdered in 1972, his dad called her and said the cops told him they found his ID in D'Angelo's house. Creepy. You know, and maybe that's true. WordPress. Boulder Creek Road. Dude, okay, so are you banned from Reddit entirely, or are you just banned from Earons? Because I want to go on Reddit and make a thread called What If D'Angelo Had a Jetpack? Oh my god. People be so mad. I'm going to do it with a fucking, That is my password, you liar. What the fuck are you talking about? See if this works. Yes, I'm in. Here we go. Earons. Watch this thread. It's going to be gold. What? Oh. And then, yeah, I did click on that Murder Inc., so we're going to go into that, too, if you want. Let's just fuck with Reddit, though. Let's post on here. Create post. What if Joseph D'Angelo had a jetpack? Oh, I need to do something, though. I'm going to dox myself if I do. I don't want to do that. You have to be careful. You start getting excited. I don't even have an account I can do this with. All my burner accounts are, like, crazy shit. I don't have an account I want to do that with. So badly. Because of Lisk. I know, you're right. You're right, I won't. You want to come on the stream?
Am I on the stream?
From earlier, yeah, you want to come on there again? You want to come talk to Murder Inc. with me?
What does he say?
All kinds of stuff. He thinks every crime in the world was Joseph D'Angelo.
Is what?
Joe D'Angelo.
Even the Tylenol murders?
Yeah, what do you think about the Tylenol murders, Murder Inc.? He doesn't think everything. I like to speak hyperbolically, but like a lot of stuff. Like hundreds of crimes. Do you have a count, Murder Inc., on how many homicides or major crimes you think that D'Angelo did? It must be. Oh, he doesn't know about Tom. Okay. Yeah, probably not. We just watched a documentary on it. That's why. How many? Do you know how many? Like, what's your count right now of how many murders do you think D'Angelo did? Here, I could get off this stool for
No,
you.
you sit there.
100 plus, maybe 200. God damn. That's wild, dude. Can you imagine? What was he every single day for 10 years? He would just go out every night and murder someone. Like, oh my god, that's a lot. But what did we see with the Green River Killer? How many does Green River have? Green River has, how many? Let's see. A lot. So that's the thing. He could be right.
At least a lamb.
Yeah, we don't know, but that's a weird one. He was convicted for 49 murders. And he is believed to be the most prolific serial killer in the United States history. Let's see what he says he did. Because he says he did more.
It said gonorrhea.
Oh, jeez. Confirmed. Suspected. Where is the thing where he says he killed like hundreds? I don't know where it is. But, he was convicted for 49, so that's huge numbers.
He looks like Wayne.
Oh, no. It's not outside the realm of possibility. He could have done 100 or 200 murders. That's a long jump from 13, but very, very possible. And I very much encourage the work that you're doing, because you are digging up unsolved homicides all across California and in the hot spots of the Irons from old newspaper articles that no one has ever looked at before and no one is even looking at all. And so, a large number of those could very well be him. But it just is going to take the DNA for me to say it. To be like, yes, that's a D'Angelo crime. I need that DNA.
Visalia ransacker.
Yep. He the Visalia ransacker.
Did you show them Sadie?
No, you want to bring Sadie? You bring both the piggies. Here's our guinea pigs. Oh, our guinea pigs are ransackers. Every night at like 1 or 2 in the morning, they just rip their cage to shreds. They go ape in there. You have Sadie.
This one's Sadie.
See if you get her to chirp. Jeez. Okay, careful. Or Sadie. She goes whoop, 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 whoop.
Now Lily going crazy.
Okay. Careful with her.
Flying over the earth.
Yeah, she in space. Good job, little Sadie. So, it's just is going to require that proof for me, and that's a good place to be. We don't want to be like Drew Beeson and fucking just cling to shit. This stream is becoming repetitive. We're at 2 hours and 35 minutes. That's a long one. As Buzz Aldrin would say, and then a long one. So, happy Halloween, everyone.